Hello friend, welcome back to Acre Homestead. I just got the baby down for a nap, which means I have a little bit of time where I am going to tackle this project. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you back to Sherwin-Williams, and I'm going to talk to you my thought process on picking out the paint for this project. What we're going to do today is paint the floors in this room. They're kind of a grayish blue. I like the color, but I don't think it's gonna match the furnishings that we are gonna be putting in here. We did buy some furniture, and some of it is gonna be delivered on Wednesday. Today is Monday. I am here home alone, so I have to work between naps and feedings, and I wanna see if I can get this room painted, the floors, today. So I need to get them painted, let them dry. While they dry, I've got another project I wanna do, and well, we're gonna do a test sample. Around the fireplace, it has a wood frame and it's a little bit on the orange side for me, and so I purchased some stain. What my thought process is we're gonna prep these floors, get the first coat of paint on the floor, and then we will do a test stain sample over here and see what we think of the color, and see if we can get the color to match the floor color a little bit better, because I think that's a little bit orange. I think eventually we are going to reframe this fireplace, but I think it could get a little bit of a facelift with just a little bit of different stain. When Josh and I had our first house, we refaced a fireplace and it was really pretty. It was stunning actually. And I think it would be cool long term to put stone all the way along this whole thing. But if we can just get this wood mantle to match the floors a little bit better, we would be golden for quite some time.
It's always fun when you're trying to pick a color like black, gray, or white, where you think it's really simple. You just pick black, but there's so many to choose from. So the color on the walls is Gossamer Vale, and the night, or whereas tricorn black is the blackest black that Sherwin-Williams carries. And I wanted a little bit warmer of a black than that. In our first home, we had painted our bottom cabinets black, and we used tricorn black, and it was a little bit cold. So I asked them at Sherwin-Williams, with the other black, what are the undertones? Like, what do they add to it to make it have a different color? And with the Magic Black and the Caviar, they add a little bit of red and white. The Caviar is the next darkest, and the Black Magic is a little bit, it has more of the red and more of the white. And so that is what I was thinking. I wanted a little bit more of a warmer brown because we went with more of a warmer gray. And then this is me looking at the stain. I didn't tell Josh I wanted to do this project, but I was here and Sherwin-Williams is not that close to me. So I thought, while I was here for $13, I'm going to go ahead and just grab a thing of stain, and we will put it on a sample and we'll see how we like it. This was a very spur of the moment project for me.
What I need to do first is empty this room, and then I got out some sandpaper, and there's a few areas where I need to sand. I'm not going to make this look perfect. I think long term we're eventually going to refinish these floors, but the paint is starting to chip, and there are a few areas where we have some putty, or not putty, but what is this called? It's right there too, you can see. It's spray foam, that's what it is, because when we redid the trim around these windows, we put some foam insulation around the windows to help insulate that room. And some of it dropped on the floor, so that needs to be sanded smooth. And then hopefully a fresh coat of paint will make this area look a lot better. These are hardwood floors. I'm not exactly sure why they're different than these. So here's the before shot.
On this day, it was fun because we were able to get some serious things accomplished in between all the breaks that I had to take. And it's fun kind of learning that new skill. It's been a stretch, not getting, not frustrated is the word, but just being content in each moment. I am someone who really likes to get up. I'm not a procrastinator. I like to get things done and then I can turn my brain off and relax. But now with the way my life is, I get lots of fun interruptions. And so it's good practice for me to learn the skill of just being in the moment and not feeling like I have to check everything off right away. I can just enjoy each little progress we make and then enjoy the breaks in between. So I am emptying this room first things first.
So this is here where you can see some of the spray foam. There is a little bit of bumpiness to it. Now these floors clearly are not going to be perfect. There are gaps between the floors and all those types of things, but where I can smooth out where there's a little bit of spray foam, just so that you don't see that texture through the paint, I'm gonna go ahead and take that time to do that. Probably should have painted this before we put the trim in, but we didn't, so no time like right now to do it.
Just like with any painting project, prep is the most important thing. Whatever I don't sand off or leave behind is going to show up in the final product. So I'm not the most detail-oriented person, and I am really focused on trying to be as detail-oriented as possible and really take my time to prep these floors well. You can see all those muddy dog prints. We're going to clean all that up. I didn't want to go and clean any of the mud off the floors. That's because we have no lawn right now, and the dogs, even with wiping their paws, we get a lot of dirt. I get the privilege of cleaning the floors a lot right now. But I am taking the time to make sure I'm being very detail oriented and trying to get these floors as smooth as possible. Josh is just about to head to work, so we are going to be home alone from here on out.
There's a little bit of tape left from the painters that I'm going to get up. So I'm going to have to cut this in, and it's going to be difficult to cut this in around this trim, and this tape is going to be in my way. So I'm going to get this up. And I'm going to thoroughly clean these floors before we do any painting.
We have 2 dogs, and they are inside probably 99% of the time because right now we have no lawn, and so it's just a mud pit out there. So we get a lot of dog hair in here. So I'm going to sweep it. I'm also sweeping all the window sills and the trim to try to knock any dust and hair that might fall into our paint. And I'm going to get that swept up, and then I do vacuum because I want to really make sure I get everything. And so we're going to sweep, vacuum, and then mop up all those paw prints. This room is what made me fall in love. One of the many reasons, I should say, that made me fall in love with this house. This sunroom, my dream here is for it to be kind of a coffee, like a morning sit area. And I'm really looking forward to that. It kind of feels like you're in a ship because it's surrounded by windows. And on stormy days, it's probably my favorite place to be in the house because you kind of overlook our property and the view beyond, and it's just really pretty and fun. So I'm excited to have this room kind of come together. I envision it just full of houseplants. I've never been one to keep houseplants alive, but that is a goal of mine. And I'm going to probably download one of those apps that tells you when to water and fertilize and all those fun things.
So now I've gotten, I would say, the majority of the dust up. What I'm going to do now is mop. You can see all these paw prints on here. I'm going to mop, I'm going to let this dry, and then I will probably sweep and vacuum one more time just to make sure we've got as much of that dust up as possible so we don't paint the dust into the floors.
For a second there, it almost looked like I was about to mop myself into a corner, and I'm going to definitely have to be mindful of that when we paint, that I don't paint myself into a corner. It is so satisfying watching these floors get clean. They already look 100% better, just taking a minute to mop them and get all that dirt and grime and dust off of them.
Now that I have the floors really clean, I'm going to take a piece of painter's tape and I am going to put it on the base trim to help protect the trim from me getting paint on it. When I cut in the floor.
I almost skipped this step thinking that I could cut this in without touching the trim, because there is a little bit of a gap between the floor and the trim because these floors are not even. And I thought that if I had a small enough brush and I took my time, I wouldn't touch the trim, but I did touch the trim. So I am really glad that I took this time to put this painter's tape on the trim.
You can see how I'm working really hard to get this tape on just the trim. There's a little gap around most of the trim between the floor and the doors because these floors aren't level. So by getting the tape on the trim, it's gonna be a lot easier for me to cut in and not hit the trim with the paintbrush. And yeah, so that's gonna be really, really helpful.
For this room, there's going to be one really big rug, and then there's going to be 2 round swivel chairs that are going to be in this room. And the goal for this room is that the chairs, I want them to be functional so you can swivel out and enjoy the view and have a cup of coffee or tea, but that they can also swivel and face into the living room so that if I'm having a party or something like that, they are going to be able to kind of create the living room and have it be a little bit more of a continuous space. I didn't want anything that was going to be fixed one direction or the other. I had that couch in here that faced the view and it felt really cut off from the rest of the house. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how those chairs look once they arrive.
We have it all prepped and ready to go. Here's the moment of truth. I'm grabbing my paint can. So the color I ended up going with is the Black Magic because this one was a little bit warmer. It wasn't so stark black. In Josh and I's first house, we completely remodeled it, and one of the things we did was we painted the cabinets. We painted the bottom cabinets black and the top cabinets white, and we did tricorn black, which was one of the ones that we were looking at in Sherwin-Williams. And it's a little bit, even though it's the truest black out there, it's kind of cold. And so I thought this Black Magic was a little bit warmer because it had some of those red tones in it. So I hope I picked a correct color here. I feel like I'm on Trading Spaces a little bit. You know how they would always pull it out and look at it? So that's pretty, I like it. I think I would have liked either of those 3 colors I picked, but I'm happy, I think, with this one. So I've got a couple different brushes. So what I'm gonna do first is go around and I'm going to use this teeny tiny brush. This is actually a watercolor brush, but I've been using it to paint. I used it actually to paint around the trim so that I can get really, really close to the trim and up underneath the trim. And then I don't want to roll that close to the trim. So I have this brush, this is an angled brush as well, that I can then paint a little bit away from the trim so that when I go to roll, we have a little bit of a few inch margin there. So I think I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna start in this corner back here. I did get porch and floor enamel paint. That is what they recommended. I asked at Sherwin-Williams which one I should get. And I got 1 gallon, which is probably more than enough we need for this project. This little brush is working perfect. Oh, you can't even see. To get up underneath the trim.
I am taking this paintbrush and I'm pushing down on the bristles and flattening them and trying to get that paint up underneath the trim as best as possible so that you can't see underneath the trim a different color because there is a little bit of a gap between the trim and the floors. I want to try to get that paint actually up underneath the trim. Here you can see a little bit difference between the color, the gray color that was already on the floor and the black that I am putting on the floor. One thing I was a little bit worried about when I was at Sherwin-Williams and I was talking to them about which paint I should choose is, would this paint level out? Am I going to see brush strokes, or am I going to see, what's the word? You know, when you roll, sometimes the roller can leave some texture. Well, because these are a flat surface on the floor, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to see brush strokes or anything. When you paint textured walls, you don't have to worry about that as much because anything that might show up is kind of hidden by the texture on the walls. And they reassured me that this paint should be fine. And so I went with their recommendation because they know more about it than I do. And I was really happy with how this leveled out and really just went on super, super smooth. You can even see here. They did recommend that I purchase I'll show you later in the video when I get the roller out, but it's a finer roller, not one that you would use to roll walls with because it doesn't hold as much paint, but it is going to leave a nice smooth finish. This took me a little bit longer to go around this room than I thought it would, but it's one of those things, you know, you just put in an audiobook. That's what I was listening to today, was an audiobook, and just I enjoy doing things like this that are kind of mindless and tedious. I always thought that it would be so cool to be a truck driver growing up because audiobooks have always been something that I have been obsessed with. And so I thought that if I was a truck driver, I would have all the time in the world to listen to as many audiobooks as I want. And that's why I like doing painting projects sometimes, because it's one of those things that you can just put something on and kind of turn your brain off and focus on the task at hand. I used to do a lot of painting. I was homeschooled growing up. I don't know if many of you know that. And then I went to my freshman and sophomore year, I went to an art homeschool co-op, and 2 days out of the week were all dedicated to art. And so I have a bunch of art paintbrushes around. And so one of them got donated to the home DIY project. I don't have much time these days to do much painting, but something I do enjoy, actually painting like projects, not painting projects. I would call what I'm doing right here a painting project, but actual painting on canvas or painting on watercolor paper or something like that. One thing I love original artwork. I had to actually unfollow a bunch of people on Instagram just because I followed all these artists and all my money would go to original artwork. And so I had to remove the temptation. And that's one thing that I'm really looking forward to, getting this big project taken care of, or not taken care of, but this big project of putting this living room and sunroom and all this together, is I'm going to pull out some of my original artwork that I've collected over the years. I haven't bought any in a long time, but I do have somewhat of a collection from decorating our first house, and I'm really excited to pull that out and have that on the walls at this house. At the last house, we never got around to remodeling. We were there for 3 years, and there just never was time to do that. The first year we were there was 2020, and I lost my job, and so we had no resources to do any remodels. And then the next year I started YouTube, and Josh was in school, so there was no time. And then the year after that, we thought we might move, and here we are. Working on putting our own style on this house, and it is so fun, and I'm glad you're along for the journey. We have the entire perimeter cut in, and now what I'm doing is I'm going through and finding where there's big kind of dings in the floor, or just where the wood has texture to it. And I'm going to take a paintbrush, because the next step is to roll, and I'm going to just paint in those crevices so that when we roll, we make sure that that area gets painted in. So I'm just looking for where there's kind of dents and dings. I don't know if this step was totally necessary, but I figured once I rolled, I wouldn't be able to go back and do this until the paint completely dried. So I'm glad that I just took, I don't know, this probably didn't even take 3-4 minutes maybe to go through and find any dents and fill them in.
I'm gonna prep, well, it's all prepped now for rolling. So I'm gonna wrap these paint brushes up. So I don't feel like washing them yet because we're gonna probably do a second coat. I don't know if I'm gonna need to do a second coat on cutting in, but I don't want these to dry out while we're rolling. So I've got my pan here. I can't find my actual, like the tray part, but I've just stacked the ones that I've used for the other room, and this will have to do. We're gonna pour some paint in here. I should not have wrapped that brush yet. I should have waited till I did this part. Let's see if I can unwrap it and use the same, yeah. Get that back in there. I think 1 gallon is gonna be more than enough for what we're doing today. Wrap this back up. I'm gonna use my extra long roller for this again, like we did when we were painting the walls, but I got a different roller mat. I asked them at Sherwin-Williams which one I should get, and this is a soft woven, lint-free, 3/8 inch, 14 inches wide, and it's supposed to leave a smooth finish, or a smoother finish, because these are on the floors. I wanted a nice smooth finish as best as possible. This is what we're working with today. This just goes on like this. Let's see. Uh-oh. Normally there's another piece right there, and it was on there earlier and I don't see it now, so now I'm gonna have to go find it. I'm not gonna be able to use this if I don't have that piece. That would not be great. So you put it on like that and then you tighten it, and this is dropping paint on the ground, so I'm gonna have to vacuum right where I'm sitting. Oh, we found it. That's exactly what we need. I'm gonna vacuum this spot up real quick, but I'm gonna move this over here. I don't want a ton of paint on my roller. I want to roll as much off as possible so that it doesn't seep through and kind of fill in the wood. I want to keep that as clean as possible. I also don't want to paint myself into a corner, so we're going to start over here.
So here we go. All of that work up to this point where we get to do the most satisfying part, which is roll on the paint. It always feels like, you know, this project is painting the floors, but 80% of the work is prepping and getting prepared in order to paint the floors. This is my absolute favorite part, and it's the reward you get for putting in all of the effort of prepping the floors to begin with. Now you can see there's 2 vents on the floor here. The vents that were on here were white before. What I think I'm going to do for those, I haven't figured it out totally. I think I'm going to go with black vents. So that is something that I'm going to have to go, I don't know, look online or go to Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that. We, at our first home, we had replaced all the vents to black. So I know that they're out there. I just need to go get those at some point. I love rolling floors. If you have a project and you need to paint, I would highly recommend go get yourself one of these 12 to 14 inch rollers. It's amazing how fast it can make a project go, as opposed to a 9-inch roller. That those extra few inches just make a huge difference on how fast you can get a project done like this. This only probably took me, I don't know, 6 minutes or 7 minutes to get this whole thing rolled in.
First coat is done. I don't know if we're gonna need to do another coat because that flooring color was already so dark. So now let's do a test for the stain. But what I'm gonna do with this paint roller before I do anything, I have a bag here. I am going to stick this roller in this bag so that it stays wet and doesn't dry on me in case I decide to do one more coat or it needs one more coat. I want to take the extra, let's see if I can do this, the extra paint that's in my roller tray. I should probably set this roller on this canvas so I don't get any black paint on my floors. I kind of just started this project really, really quickly because I wanted to get it going. So that's there. I've got a ratty t-shirt of my husband's that he said I could use to stain or practice staining that mantle. I'm excited to see if we like this stain and if we're going to do this project today. So I've got my brush, got our black paint here, and I'm going to put extra paint back in here because there's quite a bit of paint left in our tray. I do have some windows open to help get some fresh air in here. I do not want to turn, I was thinking about turning a fan on over those flooring to help it dry faster, but we have dogs, and even though I did vacuum and things, I don't want to make it too blustery in here to disrupt the dog hair and get onto the flooring before it dries. So the window open is as much breeze as I want happening in here. So let's get this wrapped back up, and then we are going to put some stain on a piece of wood. My mom came over for a few minutes this morning to hang out. My nieces wanted to hang out, and so she gave me the idea to, instead of practicing putting the stain right onto the, I was going to put it on the top of the mantle where you can't see. She said, why don't you put it on a piece of wood? So that's what we're going to do. So let's see here. I've got my husband's shirt. I grabbed scissors, but I don't know where I put them. I'm going to make some room for us to work here. I'm going to clean up my mess a little bit. It's kind of overwhelming and messy right at the moment. Now I have to find where I had that piece of wood, that scrap piece of wood. I can't find my scrap piece of wood, so I'm going to go put some things away. And on my way to put these things away, I'm going to go grab another piece of scrap wood. So I'll be right back. Would help if I unplugged the shop vac first. I found it. I'm still going to put this stuff away and we'll be back to do a test sample in a minute. Okay, now, the color that I picked is dark walnut. I was thinking of a color that would look like one of the dark knots in my flooring. You can see there's some darkness to it in a couple of the knots. So that's kind of what I was thinking with this. So we'll see. We'll see. This was like $13, so if this can transform that fireplace and we can really be happy, I mean, I'm happy with how it looks now, but if I love it, it will let us enjoy it for a few more years before we end up redoing the whole thing. Oh, I like that. The stain is a lot more brown and the fireplace is a lot more orange. I think that looks really good with the pink color as well. And it looks really nice with the floors. It's not going to be touching the floors because the fireplace is up off the floor, but that matches really nice, that color combination. So I think I'm going to go ahead and stain it. Before I start staining this fireplace, I want to give myself some more room to work. So I'm going to move this couch yet again. And it's really easy to move it now that I have those towels under it. Let's see. Where do I want to put it? Maybe I'll put it up against this other couch we have. I'm just thinking I want a little bit more space where I'm working. So here is the before. I'm really glad I took the time to tape the trim because I did hit the trim a couple times. So I am going to take the time to tape the wall so that I don't hit the wall. Or that if I hit the wall, it's okay. I am trying to slip this tape up underneath the wood so the wood does not come all the way, or it's not flush with the wall. So that way I can get a nice clean finish. I think I'm going to take a minute. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this or not, but I think I'm going to tape the stone too. I don't know why I wouldn't do that. So we're going to tape the stone as well.
I'm really glad I took the time to do this. Now, the one thing I did not take into consideration when doing this is that the stone has texture to it. And so it did not stick, the tape did not stick completely flat as much as I would have liked to it. So when I stained, I waited probably, I don't know, an hour or two before I removed the tape, maybe not that long, but long enough that the stain had kind of dried. Because it didn't sit completely flat on the stone, the stain was able to seep through the tape a little bit. So if you're going to do a project like this, and if I do a project like this again, as soon as I am done staining a section, I will remove the tape. And then if you need to scrub off any stain that gets on the stone, you can scrub it off really easily. I was able to scrub it off, but it took a lot of elbow grease to do that. And I was a little bit stressed that it wasn't going to come off, and it did come off. So we're all good.
I have the whole fireplace taped now. So this is what we're starting with right now. If I acted like I knew what I was doing, that would be a lie. I am kind of making this up as I go along. I'm going to start on this side of the fireplace because it's the side that's the farthest away from the front door, so that if I end up not liking it, we will just have done this one side and most people won't be able to tell what I have done. So I have this paintbrush here. This paintbrush is now going to be ruined after this. I should have got one of those really cheap paintbrushes. But this is all I have, so this is what we're going to use since this is what I'm doing today. And so far I like it, I think. I have my stain down there. I'm just going to paint it on. And then I'm going to take my rag and let me get it on everywhere. Then I'm going to wipe it so it's not quite so dark. I like that. I'm doing the front, so no turning back now. I hope Josh likes it. I really did not love the orange. I think this is going to match the floors a lot better. I can always go back and do a second coat if I want it darker. So I think I'm just going to start with that. You can see a little bit better from this angle that this side I'm starting with is far away from the door, and you wouldn't see this unless you were over here. Now this will stain a lot more than paint will, hence the name, so I really want to be careful I don't get it on the stone or on the floors. See that right there? That is some paint I must have got on there when I was painting, and it doesn't want to stain over, so I'm gonna have to sand that and stain over it. I think I'm loving it. Woo! I don't like picking that jar up because it's so full and liquidy. I can see myself splashing it out. We still only have that much done on the fireplace, but this is dry. So I think what I'm gonna do is go ahead and get one more coat rolled on here so that this can be completely dry tonight. We are having furniture delivered on Wednesday, and I am gonna be out of the house all day tomorrow. I can't be home at all. So I wanna try to get this project buttoned up tonight if we can. And look at what I just realized I did. Well, that's a bummer. I got a little bit of black paint on the trim, so I'll have to paint over that. But that is just part of projects like this, where you do your best, mess up a little bit, and then you can readjust when you are all done. I'll just touch that up with some white paint. I am disappointed though I did that. I also can see a little bit of white. That is actually underneath the trim, but because these floors now are so dark, you can see that. So I am gonna take the little paintbrush and just fill those few little spots in. There's there, and there. It's hard to see, but I'm gonna get those before I roll this one more time. I almost decided not to do a second coat, but like right here, I missed some. So I'm really glad I am deciding to do a second coat because I would need to do it regardless. Honestly, there's not very many painting projects where you can get away with only doing one coat. So I don't know what I was thinking there, thinking I could maybe get away with only one coat. There's going to be a rug in here and a bunch of furniture, so you might not notice this, but it's worth taking the time because if you can notice it, it would be a bummer for me to have to get all this stuff out later. So I might as well do it right the first time. And then once I have this done, I can put all the painting stuff away and we can be done with this painting project. There are more painting projects that need to be done, but this one will be done. Paint is not the best finish for floors, but this is a floor paint. I know what paint was on here before because they left it in the garage and it was not floor paint. So it is good to know that we are putting floor paint on here. So hopefully it will stand up better to wear and tear. But this was cheap to fix as opposed to putting in new flooring would cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. This cost me a total of $50 to do this project and the staining project. It's looking really shiny and wet on the camera, but in person it's not shiny. And there is going to be a big rug in here, so a lot of this floor will be covered up.
I am really glad that I did the second coat. I think it also not only covered everything which needed to happen, but it created a stronger finish on the floor. I let these floors cure for a good 2 days before we let the dogs out these doors and we really walked on them. I didn't even look at the gallon of paint to see if you needed to do that, but I thought that because it was more of an enamel paint that it would be better just to let it sit and cure. Our furniture was supposed to be delivered in, I can't remember what day after doing this project, but currently as we sit here, it's been 2 weeks, and because of weather, we still don't have the furniture, but I'm happy with this paint so far.
We did it. One project done. We still obviously have to clean up the painting project. I'm gonna go get these running underwater, and then I'm gonna start back up on the fireplace project.
I can't tell you how good it feels to personalize this homestead and make it feel like our home. Like I had mentioned earlier, our first home, Josh and I completely customized and we made it our own and we lived in it completely finished for about 4 months before we ended up selling it and buying our last homestead. And when we bought our homestead, it was November 2019. And then not much longer after we bought it, 2020 hit, and you all know what happened there. And as a dental hygienist, I lost my job. And so we didn't have any resources in order to customize the interior of our home, because right after that, when I started going back to work, Josh went to school full-time and working full-time. I started YouTube, and any resources we had went to the garden, which I think that that was the right choice for us. But it does feel good now to be able to put our own stamp on this home and create a home that feels like Josh and I's style. And so we're just, slowly going to chip away at different projects. And sometimes they're bigger projects, sometimes they're littler projects, like these 2 projects. I think it cost me a total of $55 in paint and materials and stain to get this done, a half day worth of my efforts. And we were able to really transform 2 areas and turn them into more our style, plus also just give them a facelift, because those floors were so beaten up that it looks a lot cleaner and finished in there. And the big transformation is going to come when we are able to put some furniture in the space that fits the space. It's kind of an awkward shaped room. I don't know if you can tell, but this room is a fanned shape. So where you enter from the entry of the house, it's narrower, and then where those big windows are on the other side, that wall is really wide and it kind of fans out. So it's been super tricky to try to figure out furniture for this space because of the shape of it. It's not just a square or a rectangle. So I'm excited and nervous to see how this whole thing comes together in the end.
We got it all done. Now I'm gonna go wash my hands. If I was thinking a little bit better, I would have put gloves on. I'm gonna go try to scrub this off as best as possible. And then the fun part, we get to take the tape off and see how well we did. I already liked it, but we get to see how well it looks without the blue tape. I was able to get most of it off, but it's gonna be a few days probably before I can get all the stain off. Now the fun part, getting this tape off. I hope Josh likes it. There's definitely I got a smudge up here, and when I was taking my rag to clean off the stain, then I made a brown spot up there. So I'm gonna have to take some tape and repaint that area, but that won't be a big deal. I'm gonna go ahead and just clean this whole thing now because it all looks nice and fresh, and I want this to look nice and fresh too. So we're just gonna take a second to wipe this down. I really like it. I think it's a lot richer. I like that the wood kind of disappears almost. It's not so orange and in your face. So I think we'll be able to live with that for quite some time. And I think with the new furniture we're bringing in, that will match a lot better. It's gonna kind of just disappear, as opposed to, I think the orange kind of stood out a little bit. And I really like that. Pretty happy with it. After all that, I found my tray that I was looking for, which is great because I will use this to carry my tools and stuff outside. I am going to go ahead and take time to clean this up. I am going to start and finish these 2 projects today because, like I said, I am going to be gone all day tomorrow, and I don't want this project to be lingering over my head. I'm just going to toss Josh's old t-shirt that we used. I'm going to toss any garbage in here. Those are all going out to the garage. Garage. Friends, very productive day. We got this floor done. I was not expecting to do this project anytime soon, but we decided to get some furniture for this area, and I wanted the floors done before we put the furniture and the rug on there. So I'm gonna let this area cure absolutely completely, at least 24 hours before I walk in there to remove the tape. It's gonna look so good when we get to remove the tape. And this project, I have to say, I am very proud of myself. This is not something that is something I've ever done. I've stained wood, I guess, but I've never just given a fireplace a facelift like this before. We did at our last house, but we actually hired someone to do the masonry. And so I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it looks so good. I think it just, like I said earlier, I'm just really thrilled with it. So the baby needs me again, so I'm gonna sign off here. And I just wanna say thank you for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. I'm happy with the progress. I'm excited we were able to do this, and it was worth the effort because it only cost me about 50 bucks total. And I think it really transformed these two spaces. So I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. If you enjoyed this, I can pop a couple of my other videos here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being you. And I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.